I guess the first thing to say is it's real. Everyone said I was a madman for making a video about that Elena change. So, tomorrow the update drops for Street Fighter 6 that I mentioned in my last video, and Capcom have confirmed that there are balance adjustments coming in this update. Unfortunately, it is the smallest balance patch in history, so we're going to go through the changes. I'm going to have a little bit of a read through of the change list here and review them. But advance warning, there's basically only 3 characters getting balance changes, as it says here. The focus is mostly Mai, Elena, and Sagat. As always, if you like this kind of stuff, please hit subscribe, and let's get on with it. Okay. So as you can see on the sidebar here, there are changes for more than just 3 characters, but most of them are just bug fixes, which I won't go through. The only one that I think might be worth mentioning is Dalsim, because one of his bug fixes actually does have a slight balance effect to it. The amount of chip damage that Dalsim's critical art does on block has been increased from 1000 to 1250. Dalsim players, if you were trying to chip out your opponent with critical art, it now does slightly more chip damage. That's the only one worth mentioning from there. But let's get into the actual 3 characters that have changed. And we're going to start with Mai. Mai has been nerfed. That's a sentence that should fill me with joy. I should be like smiling when I say Mai got nerfed, but the changes are very minor. So let me explain what's happened here. So it's mostly about drive gauge damage and like drive gauge restoration is kind of the focus here. So a standing heavy punch has had the amount of drive gauge you lose on block reduced. So if you block her stand heavy punch, it does slightly less drive gauge damage, 5,000 to 4,000. And then there's like 5,000 changes here to basically every single version of her fan. And what they've done is they've basically made it so that if you parry or perfect parry pretty much any version of Mai's fan, you get more drive gauge back. But the thing is, this kind of reminds me a lot of the last time they tried to nerf fans. In the last balance patch, they made it so that you can walk backwards after blocking the first hit before the second hit falls down. And that didn't address the fundamental problem with fan pressure, which is that it gives Mai an extremely unfair, one-sided interaction. And that hasn't changed again, so... I mean, it's a nerf, kind of, but it doesn't really matter. And there's also this one. This is an interesting nerf, because this probably actually does matter a little bit. So it says, forward throw, the distance between the characters after hitting at the corner of the screen has been shortened. So basically, Mai is going to be slightly closer after her forward throw. And that's technically a nerf, because it means that if she does forward throw into dash, like her current throw loop, she'll be so close that she won't be able to walk back shimmy. So what they've done is they've basically turned her throw loop into like Jury's throw loop or Terry's throw loop. So if she wants to shimmy after a forward dash, she's going to have to like backdash probably, or like delay button. And it's a slight nerf. She did have the most brain dead throw loop in the game, but she still has a throw loop. And my other question is like, is this going to have unintended side effects? Like, by being closer after a forward throw, does that mean she can now, like, walk up throw? Is she now in range to press buttons after a forward throw where she couldn't before? I don't know. We'll see how this one pans out, but on paper it's a nerf, but in practice, we'll see. I do think it's funny that in the little text above this, like the kind of adjustment summary bit, oh, this was the bit that made me laugh in the general bit. So it says, in a previous update, we downgraded some of Mai's attacks that heavily restricted the opponent's actions, but combos using all version of Kachosen still made it very easy for her to take control of the stage. Her ability to corner opponents was the best among all of the characters. These attacks were difficult to counter unless the opponent opted for high-risk, high-difficulty techniques like perfect parry or invincible attacks, so we've rebalanced them again. Which is a really strange thing to say, because they haven't changed any of those things. Her corner carry is exactly the same as it's always been. And perfect parry is still the only counterplay to fan. But this paragraph has absolutely nothing to do with the changes that they actually made. It's really weird the way they phrased this. I got mixed up by that. Anyway, let's move on to Elena. So Elena got some buffs. So Leopard Snap, which is the roll into the light kick follow-up, which is this one. This thing, which is mostly just kind of like a poke. This now builds a bunch of extra super gauge. And this one's interesting. So Leopard Snap boosted, adjusted the distance between the characters after this attack is blocked while the opponent is in the corner of the stage to match the distance when at the center of the stage. Pushback on block reduced. Blowback when the first hit is a mid-air hit has been reduced, making it less likely for the second attack to miss. So, I think I talked about this when I was actually talking about my experience playing Elena. This is Enhanced Leopard Snap, and this move is like one of Elena's few ways of giving herself plus frames from like a special move. This is quite good as like a meaty sometimes, but I always thought this was a really weird move because it's only +1 on block, and it leaves you at a slightly awkward spacing afterwards. If you do this move mid-screen, she's in throw range afterwards, and if you do this move in the corner where there should be a better situation, you're actually not in throw range afterwards. In general, this is a buff because now she can actually try and pressure you here. It's also, the other thing that I want to know, and this will be more apparent tomorrow once the update actually drops, is can Elena now do a low check here? Because one of the problems she had before was if your opponent walks backwards after blocking this, it was very hard for Elena to actually stop people walking backwards. This was the issue with this move, is that if you wanted to stop people walking out of your pressure, crouch light kick to crouch light punch doesn't work here, which was very annoying when I was playing her. So we'll see. When the update drops, we'll see. But it would be nice if this now actually works so that people can't just walk out of her pressure. Okay, what else? Moon Glider, which is Sway, follow-up. Expanded the attack hitbox to the follow-up second attack, making it less likely to miss. Okay, that's just mostly quality of life. OD Moon Glider, pushback on hit reduced, increased forward movement distance after the initial step back. Seems also like quality of life stuff, but we'll see. And this is the other interesting one. So they've buffed Elena's level 1, which is what originally started this whole wild goose chase of balance patch theorizing. But actually, the change that I think is interesting is not the one that we saw in the trailer. So as you can see here, follow-up attacks can now fill up the super gauge. So Elena can now build super after her level 1 using the follow-ups. You can juggle into stuff. What I thought was interesting was this one, actually. Attack startup changed from 9 to 7 frames. This is actually a nice buff. 2 reasons. One, for quality of life, because it was really annoying when you would try an anti-air with Elena's DP. Like, you try and do a late DP with Elena, you get her level 1 by mistake, and then they're able to land and block because her level 1 was way slower than her DP. That was annoying. But the other interesting thing about this, by making her level 1 7 frames, that might make this a good punish option, because Elena does not have a long-range 7 frame option right now. Because if you look at her mediums, stand medium kick is 6 frames, but this is very stubby. And then all of her other mediums, like crouch medium punch has good range, but this is 8 frames. This is 8 frames. Crouch medium kick is 9 frames. She kind of has like a gap in her frame data where she's really not good at punishing like -7 situations. So there might now be situations where level 1 is actually usable as like a raw punish. It's not huge, like her level 1 doesn't have like gigantic horizontal range, but this might now be her best punish on as a 7 frame. We'll see. Okay, final character with changes that I think are worth mentioning is Sagat, which I think is interesting because, in my opinion, and I said this in my video about Sagat, I think Sagat represented a really good like baseline for the power level that characters should have. So I'm kind of curious as to why Capcom is buffing Sagat. Not that these buffs make a big difference, but more just like, does Capcom think Sagat sucks? I don't know. We should probably just give Blaz the Capcom Cup prize money now, I guess. You know, save some time. So Sagat's crouching light kick does less pushback on hit and less pushback on block, which is good because Sagat's crouch light kick is really good. Like, he can catch you low and confirm it from really far away. So this button was already great. Like, there are very few characters that get to do like a 2-hit light confirm from a low, like this distance. So I thought Sagat's crouch light kick was already really good, because he can also do this. But they're making his crouch light kick even better, I guess. Crouch medium kick is also getting buffed. It's going from +4 on hit to +5 on hit, which is also, I think, a pretty big buff, to be honest. Because by making it +5, that means that he'll be able to link crouch medium kick into stand jab on regular hit. So you'll be able to do this. That will be a combo. Because right now, if you hit crouch medium kick with a bit of spacing between you and the opponent like this, he doesn't really get much off it. The other thing that's kind of interesting is that by making it +5 on hit, that will make it +7 on counter hit. And his crouch medium punch is a 7 frame. Like this will be a combo. Not at max range though. Stand light kick too? Oh wait, yeah, stand light kick 7 frames. Oh, that's kind of crazy actually. Wait, yeah, that'll work too. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, he'll be able to get like a really long range confirm with this. Counter hit crouch medium kick to stand light kick's gonna work as well, which is kind of crazy. Because his stand light kick has 200 miles of range. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. Tiger Monolith, which is his back heavy punch, the elbow launch. Active frames for the first attack change from 2 to 3 frames. This mostly doesn't matter, but it's worth mentioning this because I'll show you this. This move had a weird property where it actually had missing active frames in the middle. Yeah, so this attack has like 2 different hitboxes. It has an initial hitbox on the ground, and then it has a hitbox as an anti-air. But did you guys notice that for 1 frame in the middle of this move, it has no hitbox? So there's been lots of weird situations with this normal, in between the low hitbox and the high hitbox, where stuff can just break because of this gap. So yeah, they're adding that active frame, so it will have an active frame the entire way up. Which will make stuff more consistent. I don't know if it enables any new combos, but at the very least, it will make stuff more consistent. And then we got a bunch of changes to Tiger Nexus, aka Tiger Jinrai. So the light and medium versions, pushback on hit increased, forward movement increased from 2 frames before attack startup until attack startup, increased side blowback on a mid-air hit, collision pushbox on the head reduced backwards. So I think this one's a bit hard to pass, but it's a little bit finicky off like spaced combos, this thing. So maybe they're just making this stuff a little bit more consistent. Mighty Tiger, which is the light kick follow-up to Jinrai. Pushback on hit increased side blowback on a mid-air hit. Yeah. So maybe that's what it is, because they've listed it like it's a buff. So I'm assuming what it means is that you'll be slightly further away, but still able to throw, while potentially being able to shimmy here. Because right now, Sagat can't move backwards fast enough to get out of throw range here. Greedy Tiger. Forward medium kick follow-up on Jinrai. Drive gauge decrease on block change from 6,000 to 8,000. Okay. So this thing now just does more drive gauge damage. Alright, and finally, Nova Tiger, which is the heavy kick follow-up. Pushback on block reduced. So this is kind of the same thing, which is basically that after the heavy kick follow-up, this is kind of like the Elena thing. People could walk out of throw on this +2. Like, this wasn't a true tick throw. If you block this, people could walk out of it. But now, presumably, if this does less pushback, this throw will beat walk back now. So you have to actually respect the plus frames a bit more. Anyway, so that's basically it. In conclusion, Mai is a tiny bit worse. Elena and Sagat are a tiny bit better. It's a very, very minor balance patch. I hesitate to even call it a balance patch. But I think the last thing I want to talk about is this balance patch. Strangely, it seems to me the people who are most frustrated with this balance patch is the Japanese community. In Japan right now, to give you guys some context, a lot of the Japanese players consider the undisputed top 1 character in this game to be Ed. I think in the West, we're more focused on, like, Mai, but in Japan, they are fully maxed out on Ed stocks. And it's not hard to see why, because if you look at, like, the current Street Fighter League Japan lineups, there are so many Ed players. Like, it's actually crazy. Like, You've got like Momochi, Lashar, Fudo, Sahara, Adeli, Taisei. There's a ton of Ed players running around bodying everyone in Japan. And given that this is the first balance patch we've had in a while, and that there's no changes to Ed, I think that seems to have caused a kind of like suppressed frustration to emerge, because like I said, a lot of Japanese players have been surprisingly publicly critical of this update. So I am using auto translation tools, so I can't guarantee you this is a perfect translation, but this is Shuto, who says, even though the official announcement was that they would stop making adjustments once a year, I'm honestly a little dissatisfied with the frequency of adjustments. Personally, I think it would be ideal if they made small adjustments for each act, as in like each MR phase every 3 months. It does seem like they care about the pro scene, and I'm very grateful for that, but I got the impression that this year was boring for many people, including casual players. Personally, I'm looking forward to new systems being introduced next year. Tachikawa says, is this the only adjustment? World Warrior seems like it's going to continue like this. There's a lot of this generally. At the very least, I would say this idea that I see flying around that like the West is always whining about Street Fighter 6, but Japan is perfectly happy with the state of the game, isn't really accurate. I do think the frustrations and the desire for a shakeup of the meta, like an actual big balance patch that like makes core changes to the game, I think that is a universal thing. I think even the Japanese players want to see that at this point. And this mini update was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the mini balance patch, and I will see you guys all in the next video.